G'day guys, Ryan and Tommy here from the SuperCoach365 podcast. TeamListTuesday, biggest day of the year. We can't wait to get stuck into all of that. We've had a quick look, plenty of fresh faces in these teams. Teams hoping to get off to a fresh start in season 2022.
Absolutely, mate. If you want to get off to a fresh start at home, there's no better way to do it than with MANSCAPED. Now, mate, in the past, taking a shaver or a razor down to the crown jewels, it's been a risky game. Riskier than taking a chip and chase in the first tackle. You wouldn't do it.
No, silly. Like captaining Charlie Staines at Amy Park against the Melbourne Storm. You just wouldn't do it. Now, you see here, Manscaped, they've jumped on board, proud partners of the SuperCoach365 podcast. They've just brought out their Performance Pack 4.0, of course, featuring the Lawnmower 4.0, the very latest in below-the-waist grooming, waterproof. Take it in the shower, do your business, as well as this, the electric nose and hair trimmer, the Weed Whacker.
On top of that, you've got a toner, you've got a deodorizer, you've got underwear, you've got a travel bag to put it all into. How do we get involved?
Yeah, 20% off for listeners of the SuperCoach365 podcast. Just type in this code here, SCAPE365 at the checkout. You'll find the link in the description here below this video or at our Instagram bio. We can't wait to get stuck into this podcast, of course. And thanks to Manscaped, your balls will thank you. A fresh start in season 2022. Tommy, let's get into the podcast.
Beats 2, 3, maybe a fourth. They're coming at him, he's beat 6 and 7. Top to Morgans has beat an 8. Oh, wow. No.
Well, here we are. We've been gibbering on for, it seems like months on end now. Ryan and Tommy back. The biggest day of the SuperCoach season without fail. Team List Tuesday. Tommy, a massive day to kick us off. I'm very excited about this one.
Absolutely, mate. It really is the start of the season today, isn't it? We've said a few times that this is probably the most important day of the SuperCoach year, and all 16 teams being announced today. Obviously, we saw one big omission, which we'll get to in a sec, but yeah, very exciting.
Mate, talk about the no such thing as a slow news day in the NRL at the best of times, let alone on Team List Tuesday. You mentioned some news there. Let's not beat around the bush. Of course, the man you're talking about, Nathan Cleary, he's out. Now, we've sit here for a couple of weeks saying that he'd play, sort of, I guess, a little bit in hope. We were saying that as well. I know he's just such a competitor. I thought he'd do everything in his powers to be there for round one. But obviously the Panthers playing the long game. They don't want to risk their stars' health in the first week.
Yeah, it's probably a smart play from Penrith, really. Comps aren't one in March, obviously, so they don't want him to, re-injure something where he doesn't have to play. But I must admit, I'm surprised we didn't hear about this sooner. Apparently going to be out for at least 3 to 4 weeks. But up until today, it was kind of hoping that we'd play on Thursday. So they obviously kept that pretty quiet. But it's going to send obviously shockwaves through all super coaches.
Incredible, isn't it? There's no secrets in rugby league except this one. I remember that a couple of episodes ago we said, what is the best and worst kept secrets in rugby league? Maybe this is one of the best ones because, you and I mean, a lot of others as well, thought that Cleary would be there round one. Not to be the case. Other news around halfbacks missing for round one. I guess confirmation that Adam Reynolds won't be there for the Broncos as well. But I guess we sort of expected that. He was in, then he was out, then he was in, then he was out. So now he's out. We know come Friday night he won't be there against his old club, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Yeah,
it's disappointing to see. I think it detracts a little bit from that game. Obviously, Reynolds coming up against his former club would have been awesome to see. And, geez, don't the Broncos need someone like Adam Reynolds? I think it could be a long night for them on Friday.
Yeah, we'll get into all of the teams and all of the games very, very soon. I guess one more point on team list before we dive into a couple of other housekeeping items, and then we get into the teams, of course. Ryan Papenhuyzen, there for round one. Of course, there were some questions around his fitness and his availability, but he's going to be there in his familiar number one. So a chance for Papenhuyzen to come out on Saturday night and make a statement and I guess put himself in the conversation of Tom Trbojevic and James Tedesco.
Yeah, it's one less headache now for our super coaches. I know a lot of them were running with Teddy and Paps at the start of the year, and there was big question marks over Paps obviously coming into this week, but he's been named, thankfully, and a game against the West Tigers looks a pretty good fixture to kick off.
It does. We'll get into that. That one's Saturday night at Combank Stadium, Parramatta. So I guess a neutral venue of sorts, the West Tigers up against the Melbourne Storm. We mentioned big news, Tommy, a couple of big news its I guess, on our own front here. We've partnered up with TopTippers, and I guess the interest, the popularity in our overall group code it's surged on the back of the news because we'll put it up on the screens here now. You see there, prize money up to $500 from $100 thanks to TopTippers. Code remains the same, so if you've already joined previously, as we promoted this in recent weeks. Don't have to do a thing. You're already in the running. More than 1,000 people have now jumped on board thanks to Top Tippers. That's for first place. Second place will grab a NRL jersey of their whatever they choose as well. So great to have Top Tippers on board. And how about that incentive? $500 now, free to play.
Absolutely. I think we've been saying for many weeks now, just get involved for $100 or whatever we were saying. But yeah, it's really up the game, hasn't it? Top Tippers have come to the party, and yeah, now it's a really great incentive to play. Obviously, if you want to try and, like I said last week, if you're looking at our teams and thinking they're not much good, join the league, try beat us, because I'm sure you'll be able to. And yeah, big reasons to. $500 is a great amount.
Yep, free to play, more than 1,000 people in it, as we've already said. And while we're on the the topic of Top Tippers, we've put together this tipping comp as well. $500, another $500. Very generous, Dean and Top Tippers. We might have catch up with Dean a little bit later in the podcast. We're trying to get him on for a chat. $500 to the winner. Again, a second place getter will get an NRL jersey of their choice. To get involved, just simply download the Top Tippers app, available at the App Store or via Google Play. Search SuperCoach365 listeners. That's where you'll find our competition. Or simply just go on our Instagram bio, click the link in there, take on Tommy and I, and at this point there's only about 40 other people in it. So again, a pretty good chance of winning 500 if you fancy yourself tipping against Tommy and I.
Yeah, the odds aren't too bad there. And the benefit of this competition, as opposed to other tipping comps, is obviously that it goes off the betting prices and the odds by Top Sports. So a good example is this week, the Roosters, I think you get 1.2 points if you tip them and they win, whereas the Knights, if you tip them, you get about 4 points. So it kind of makes each game a bit more of a decision rather than just having an obvious favourite.
Yeah, not the old head-to-head where you pick the favourites and eventually get to the point in the back end of the year where you're playing to survive and not necessarily to thrive. And of course, Tommy, before we dive into the podcast, it'd be remiss of us not to mention we made our acting debuts on the weekend, as you've seen there at the front, and not even acting, I guess, speaking from the heart, because truly, MANSCAPED, they've jumped on board. You see it here, the Lawnmower 4.0. This is the ball deodorant. I know you've tried that out. You've given that a good rub in. Great to have MANSCAPED on board, and of course, as you saw in the intro there, use the code SCAPE365 at the checkout to kick your season off in the right way. Tommy, speaking of the season kicking off, let's not waste any more time. Penrith and Manly, Thursday night, season opener. The defending premiers up against one of the most surprise packets from season 2021. But the big news is the general, the playmaker, the captain, Nathan Cleary, the SuperCoach popular pick as well, he's not going to be there.
Yeah, bitterly disappointing, really. I think I had him in my team for 2 months now, and obviously had to make some big changes with. He's not just out this week, they think in 3 to 4 weeks. So it's a pretty bitter blow for the amount of people who owned him. Sean O'Sullivan comes in, he's a solid player, but he's no Nathan Cleary, is he?
No, again, you use that word solid, steady, another one. I guess it puts extra pressure and I guess an emphasis on what Jerome Luai does there down the left. In terms of other team news in this game, I guess confirmation around Tago or Tango playing down the left side with Brian To'o. And Charlie Staines wins out in that right wing spot ahead of Jennings, Robert and Taylor May as well. So I guess we were again sort of hoping that it would be May or Jennings purely at their price. And Staines, I guess, given what we saw from him last year, probably not a viable option in this Panthers side, especially now without Cleary going down that right edge.
No, I think May and Jennings would have both been probably better options for super coaches. I think Staines, like you said there, has proven over the last 2 seasons he's not a great super coach player. If he doesn't score, he's lucky to score 10 points. So not a great option there. For Manly, their side looks pretty strong. Ola Kawatu, surprisingly, is in. A lot of people thought he was going to be out. Ethan Bullimore is maybe a little cheapy starting in the 2RF. And the popular cheapy at only 175k, Kula, the speedster, he gets number 14 spot on the bench.
Yeah, I'm going to say off the top here, I think either Martin Tapau or Ola Kawatu. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that they'll both play. Maybe one will, but particularly Ola Kawatu, that injury, NRL Physio had it down as a 4 or 6 week injury. Excuse me, that only happened 2 weeks ago. So, again, it's a reoccurrence of his injury. You speak of Cleary not playing in round 1. I'd just be a little bit surprised if Ola Kawatu steps out, maybe more so than Tapau. You mentioned Cooler there. Yeah, great. He gets in at that cheap price, 177, is it? 175,000, one of the two. I have the feeling, though, that if he's playing that 14 role, particularly only while Dylan Walker is out injured as well, it could be a little bit of a trap. And I know there's going to be incentive there, and I guess people are going to rush towards Kula because you mentioned there his speed and the hype around that. But I think that could be a real trap because then suddenly he becomes a real deterrent if you are trying to loop your captain's score and he's coming on for a couple of minutes and not doing a hell of a lot.
No, you are right. He could only get 10 minutes on Thursday night and get 10 points or 5 points. So, and Dylan Walker does come back in a few weeks and he's pretty much got that 14th spot locked down. I suppose the upside or the other way of looking at it is if Cooler kills it and then maybe he could usurp either Brad Parker or Morgan Harper in the centres perhaps. But yeah, wait and see.
Otherwise, Liam Martin wins out in the back row. We kind of expected that, replacing the departed Kurt Capel. Probably not too much else to mention there from the SuperCoach lens. Goal kicking maybe goes to Steph Crichton, I think, without Cleary there. So again, dual position is Crichton. If you're playing a pod play, then maybe he's the one to go towards. Now, Tommy, I guess the next point here, Friday night, the early game, Canberra-Cronulla, this one down at the GIO Stadium in Cronulla. Can you tell me, you've watched the Raiders play footy for 25 plus years. You've watched them back to front, inside out. Who is James Schiller? I've never heard of him. SuperCoach hadn't heard of him at 4 p.m. this afternoon either. You couldn't find him.
Mate, honestly, I'm the same. Maybe I've heard the name once, but no idea here. We had Jared Croker, Seb Chris, Xavier Savage, looking out for one of them to fill a spot, and it's gone to James Schiller. Like you said, the SuperCoach guys had to put him in this afternoon, so no doubt he's going to be a popular cheapie. And yeah, I don't know much about him. He's hoping he's a gun.
I've had a look at his, and again, I was prompted almost by, I was like, who is this guy? Jumped on YouTube. He looks a real promising type. He was playing a lot of wing for the St. George Illawarra Dragons side in the New South Wales Cup in the past couple of years. He's a tall fella, can hit a hole, can set up his outside man as well, or in the case when he was playing centre, his outside man with his winger. You mentioned those names there, the players he's beaten out. Jared Croker, club veteran, goal kicker, played at the club for more than 10 years. This young kid must have a bit of go about him.
Yeah, he must be trading the house down, honestly, because like you say there, Croker's a club legend, albeit obviously not at his best these days. And Savage has had a huge boom on him, and he still can't get in the team with Rapana out as well. So I think Seb Chris has COVID, so that might explain that one. But yeah, very surprising selection. Another youngster for Canberra, Brad Schneider, expected to kick the goals without Croker being there. So he's going to be another real popular cheapie at the halfback slot.
Of course, as well as all the team news, we're going to reveal our teams at the back end of the podcast as well. So don't go anywhere for that one. I dare say Schneider's going to figure in both of our teams. I haven't seen yours yet. I'll bring it up later. But I dare say he'll be there because purely at the price, we saw this with Sam Walker last year. You almost have to have him. Obviously, we're going to get back to Cleary at some point. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, he's back sooner rather than later. You have to go towards these cheap options in those positions where you are having one standout gun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like I said, the goal kicking is probably the biggest ace up his sleeve because a rookie half, he may struggle to score points in SuperCoach, but if Canberra's scoring some tries, he's going to be getting the 3 points as a goal kicker. Yep. For the Sharkies, pretty settled team, pretty much what we expected. Maybe Ronaldo playing in the centres is a little bit of a surprise, but yeah, overall, a strong looking side for the Sharks.
This looks like a team that will challenge for finals footy, and I know you've been big on them the pre-season to finish top 4. You take out Wilton and you sub in the captain in Wade Graham, and then obviously bringing in guys like McInnes when he's back and fit as well. It looks a real settled team. Moylan and Hines paired together the first time. We haven't seen Moylan in the pre-season, so a watch on that as well. For the Sharks, obviously, Dale Finucane will captain this weekend. And they're carrying 4 middles on the bench. One of them, SuperCoach cheapie, popular pick, Andrew Fafita. So there will be questions around his minutes, but purely at his price, named in the jersey 17, I think you just have to almost go towards Fafita. I'm going that way anyway.
Yeah, he's such a well-known name, big name. I think he'll be in a lot of teams. The guy you mentioned before, Teague Wilton, filling in for Wade Graham, he actually doesn't score that badly in SuperCoach. If he can play some minutes, he could be a real cheap pod if you need to fill a gap there, maybe.
I say 4 middles on the bench. Obviously, Sifa Talakai there. He can play on an edge, but I don't know if they'll use him like that because Wilton has a big motor. Maybe they just play him through the middle. He's solid enough Talakai, that is. Otherwise, I guess for the Raiders, Adam Elliott on the bench. Is that a surprise for you, Tommy, as a Raiders fan? Obviously, probably one of the more high-profile signings over the summer. Perhaps Jamal Fogarty aside, but he can't crack this first 13.
Yeah, we have a lot of forwards, to be honest. I'm not too surprised. I think the best forward from a Supercoach point of view for Canberra would be Corey Harawira-Naira. He gets the start in the 12 jersey, and in the past, I think anyway, when he started, he scored pretty well. So I'd be going towards him if you were looking at any Raiders prospects.
Yep, good advice from a man who knows Raiders better than most others. Otherwise, yeah, probably not too much. And we'll get into our tips a little bit later as well. So stay tuned for that. If you are tipping with us, Top Tippers, or if you're having a play with TopSport on the weekend, we'll give our opinions on each of these matches towards the back end of the podcast. Next game on Friday night, the main game, or what should have been a blockbuster. Adam Reynolds not there, of course, but I guess some interesting picks, particularly in the Broncos' backline.
Yeah, well, there's a few. Obviously, Reynolds out. I think they're going with Albert Kelly and who's their 7?
Billy Walters.
Billy Walters. Yeah,
Kelly will play 7, Walters 6.
Yeah, so it's ugly looking halves. Let's be honest. And then Jermaine Asako betting out Selwyn Cobbo at fullback. I think surprised a few people because Cobbo was kind of penned in to be there. So yeah, look, I don't know. Drury's out on the Broncos spine already.
I don't mind. Conversely to that, I don't mind Asako at 1. I think he is a better winger, don't get me wrong. I'm surprised more so about Corey Oates being in the team. We haven't seen him, and I guess from what we saw last year with Kevy and the Broncos even, Corey Oates was absent for a large part of the start of the season and obviously throughout the middle part as well. I thought it would have been Cobbo at fullback and perhaps Asako on one wing, Jordan Pereira on another. Pereira's not there as well. So another Supercoach cheapie, someone that we were keen on. He's not there. For the Rabbitohs, though, Blake Taff in Latrell's jersey 1, just keeping that warm while Latrell's fighting his teammates. Paulo and Graham in the centres, and then obviously all eyes on the halfback, Lachlan Ilias, who makes his NRL debut. His season debut. He's made one game, but this is his real chance as the starting half to step up in the post-Reynolds era.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like his debut pretty much this week. It will be very interesting. Another cheapie who have a high ownership. Blake Taff, another one. It'll be interesting to see what he does come next week. Once Latrell is back, he's probably going to have that jersey 14, which kind of does hurt his prospects. But yeah, they look like they have a really solid team and pretty settled. So I know we're doing tips later, but I'm pretty sure he'll be tipping there.
Broncos forwards interesting as well. Palacia named to start in the front row. Jake Turpin holds out Corey Pakes at dummy half, so another cheapie goes begging there. Otherwise, Kurt Capel, Ricky in the back row, and Pat Carrigan locking the scrum. I like that. I know we had our draft on Friday. We won't spend too much time on that, but I was big on Carrigan. I think he was so good for them in 2020, a tough year for the club, but he is a real leader back there in jersey 13, and he lines up against South's leader in Cameron Murray. So otherwise, we'll get into our tips a little bit later, but I guess given what we see there from the Broncos, it is going to be hard to side with the home side. Saturday afternoon, Super Saturday, of course. The first game, the Sydney Roosters back at home, back at the SCG, a place they love to play, up against the Newcastle Knights. We mentioned a couple of halfbacks to start the show with Cleary and Reynolds. Big news today around Sam Walker that he will take the goal kicking, but he's going to wear number 6. So what are we reading to that with Luke Keary taking the 7?
Yeah, I'm probably not reading too much into it. I'm sure they'll just pick a side of the field each and stick to it. But yeah, well, I think everyone probably had Sam Walker in 7 and Keary in 6. And the goal kicking, like you say, is a big plus for Walker. I think maybe if Adam Kieran hadn't made the team, he would have got it. And people also talking about Momirovski being an option. But yeah, Sam Walker, that's a big lift for him in Supercoach lens. I think Billy Smith was the story of the day for the Roosters. I was really keen on him all pre-season, and he didn't play in either of the trials, so it kind of seemed like he was going to miss out, but he's been named. Yep,
you're big on him. I'm not. Purely for... I haven't seen it. But anyway, I don't think he's Supercoach relevant. I think purely at his price he is, but I won't be playing with him. I think it's probably more damning for Suwali. Now, I know Suwali's injured, but Nagama's there as well. Nagama's an option. So I think even Nagama would probably be ahead of Suwali. So suddenly Suwali's 2 injuries away from figuring, it looks like anyway. Otherwise, for the Roosters, Lindsay Collins starts. So I know plenty of super coaches might look towards the Lindsay Collins there, coming back off the ACL, expecting some more minutes. What do you make of this Knights side, Tommy? It's probably what we expected. I guess the surprise amongst all of it is that Daniel Saifidi won't be there in the front row.
Yeah, that's a blow they really didn't need, given that they've already had, Jaden Bradley missing and a few other disruptions. It's what we expected, yeah. Kurt Mann, I think we knew he was going to get the start in the 13, but yeah, I'm surprised Mitch Barnett only gets a spot on the bench. I know he's been fairly popular in SuperCoach in the past, but obviously not this year, getting limited minutes, I guess.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the shock to everyone, really, why or how he doesn't get a start. Fitzgibbon, I think he's handy enough. I mean, he's probably not one of the more dynamic back rowers, but he is a try scorer down that left side. Ponga has a good combination with him as well. But anyway, I think maybe the fact he's the son of the major sponsor. Is it Mark Fitzgibbon? Anyway.
I was going to mention it. I didn't know if you were going to. Nepotism.
Perhaps. We've seen a bit of that already this year when we're only just at round 1. Anyway, on the bench, I guess Drew Hutchinson in 14. Important to say that he's still in the mix, even though he's not starting in the halves. But he will bring on, I guess, he couldn't play 6, 7, 9 at a pinch. But he beats out Kieran. What do we make of that?
Yeah, I'm not too surprising. I think they're just biding their time till Verrills comes back next week, and then Watson will be in the 14, I'd say. He's similar body, sort of Hutchinson to Watson. So yeah. I think Hutchinson's just there for 1 week, really.
A little bit disappointing, Daniel Saluka for feeder. I was really impressed with him after the trials. I thought he'd turn the corner, named in jersey 19. Yeah, Nagama, we've mentioned him, jersey 18 as well. So a couple of these guys not completely out of the picture, but not there in the starting side for round 1. Next up on Saturday, the New Zealand Warriors at the Sunny Coast. They welcome the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Pretty much what we expected from the Warriors, bar maybe Viliami Valia, who gets a start in the centres. So another SuperCoach cheapie that we can tap into there.
Absolutely, yeah. He'll be obviously very popular. I think he's only 205,000, and he gets the spot, beating out a few decent names at centre. Your man, Rocco Berry, obviously highly touted by yourself. I don't know if you've ended up with him or not, but he'll be getting a run. Eli Katoa also getting a start. He's been tipped to have a big preseason, apparently, so he's another one to watch.
Bunty Afoa starts in jersey 10. Obviously, Matt Lodge suspended, and another one of those SuperCoach relevant names, Aaron Pene, on the bench, jersey 16. For the Dragons, Talatau Amon will start in the halves alongside Ben Hunt, Tyrrell Sloan at fullback, Cody Ramsey on the wing. Aaron Woods partners Blake Laurie in the starting front row for the Dragons, which means I think George Burgess and maybe even Tarek Sims notable omissions here.
Yeah, quite big omissions. Well, George Burgess maybe not, but Tarek Sims definitely thought he would get a spot in this team, but I must admit, I tipped the Saints for the spoon a few weeks ago, but this team doesn't look too bad, to be honest with you. If they play at the best of their ability, they might actually beat a few teams this year.
Of course, probably the biggest SuperCoach news out of it all is that we will see Ewan Aitken line up in the back row, which is big for all of those people who have drafted him, especially thinking that he's centre wing eligible and going to be churning out big scores in the back row. That is what we are going to see, hopefully, from Ewan Aitken from a SuperCoach sense. We already alluded to the game on Saturday night out there at Combank Stadium, formerly Bankwest Stadium, Parramatta Stadium, that is. West Tigers, a rare home game out there against the Melbourne Storm. The big name for the Storm, Ryan Pappenhausen, jersey number 1, and I guess a surprise of sorts, Nick Meaney, jersey 6, just keeping the slot warm for Cameron Munster. He'll be back in round 2.
Yeah, thank God Ryan Pappenhausen is playing, to be honest. It would have been another hour of chopping and changing today if he didn't play. But yeah, that's great to see because really there's a lot of big names missing for the Storm this week, so it's good to see one of them is playing. Nick Meaney in 6. Interesting watch. I don't know. Could he be this year's Nico Hines? I think we discussed this last week, but he gets a good shot at it to begin with. Josh King playing lock. He'll be a big cheapie, I think. 250k starting lock for Melbourne. One to watch.
Yep, definitely. Just on Meaney, I was actually surprised, to be honest, that he is named in the halves. I think it's probably a little bit more of an interchangeable role these days, 6 and 1, 1 and 6. We've seen halves and go from fullback or fullbacks going to the halves. I've never seen Nick Meaney play in the halves. For the Knights in New South Wales Cup or even his time in first grade at the Bulldogs. So Nick Meaney in the halves, I think he's a great footy player. I've got big raps on him, but I'm interested to see how he goes defending, 3 in. Jerome Hughes there in jersey 7, probably the forgotten man amongst all this halfback chat. But what are we doing with Hughes? where does he sit in his pecking order, especially now that Cleary won't be there round 1?
Yeah, well, I won't spoil it for my team reveal, but I was pretty keen on him if Cleary was out. I don't know. I do think the only negative against him is maybe, other than this game, I think the Storm have Souths and then the Eels. I don't think it's the easiest start to the year. Their draw does definitely open up after that. But yeah, no, you can't knock anybody who picks Hughes because he's been a reliable scorer now for a couple of years.
And then obviously, speaking, you mentioned this year's Nico Hines around Meaney, but similarly priced Hines and Hughes, and obviously Hines has the goal kicking. So if you were thinking between the two, and without giving too much away, but if you were going to go between those two, especially because I know some will, you'd probably lean towards Hines at the Sharks or Hughes in what looks a better Melbourne Storm side.
Yeah, it's touch and go, isn't it? Hines obviously the goal kicking, and we're pretty keen on the Sharkies, but you know what you're going to get from Melbourne. There's no risk there at all. So it depends if you want to risk it or just play the safe option, I guess.
Yep, next game here, rounding us out, or rather that game rounds us out on Super Saturday. First game on Sunday, the Eels back at CommBank, so 2 games back-to-back at Parramatta. They welcome the Gold Coast Titans. This Titans side, Tommy, there's plenty of youth, a little bit of experience amongst it as well, but they are the outsiders in this game. But I like what I see from the Titans. I'm expecting plenty of points this year, maybe not this weekend in Sydney's wet, but this team definitely has points in it.
Definitely have points. It'll just be whether they can defend or not. Because last year, I don't know, I feel like a lot of their games were 30 all or something like that. They were a great attacking team, but they just couldn't D up. But my only knock on them is they're such a young team. Like you look across their side and there's no real, in that starting 13 especially, there's no real old head. Maybe Isaac Liu is, but other than that, they're probably all under 25, maybe other than Corey Thompson.
Yeah. We'll have to break out the Excel spreadsheet and work out the average age. For the Parramatta Eels, though, I guess a settled team, a team that we're probably expecting to challenge the competition heavyweights this year, whether they come out on top in those games. This really looks like their last real shot at a title for some time, because a lot of these names are moving on. Ryan Madison off contract, obviously Reid Marnie, obviously on his way out the door as well. Papali'i going. I don't know, it just has a feeling about this year for Parramatta.
It has that sense of timing, doesn't it? Kind of similar to how we spoke about Souths in the preseason last year, kind of being the last year of their premiership window. I'm not really buying into it personally, but I do understand why people are saying it. I could completely be wrong about that. What do we make of Ryan Madison playing at lock in this game? I'm not sure if it's because Nathan Brown is still injured or not, but I think it could honestly help his scoring playing a lock.
Could. He's one of those players that is... I mentioned at the top there, those back rowers that aren't so dynamic. He probably is one that fits into that category. Not quite an Angus or a Fafita type, but he is a try scorer by his nature. I don't know, will that be dented in the middle? Is he a big worker? Would we prefer to see Papali'i on an edge, rather through the middle, and Madison on an edge? I don't know. I'm not playing with either of them to give that secret away, but you're a big fan on Maddo. Would you prefer him damaging running at a half or running through the tough stuff in the middle?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a different role for him. I don't think we've seen him play this more ball-playing role for a while. I think when he was back at the Roosters, he might have played 5'8" a little bit. So maybe he's winding back the clock a bit more. I don't know. I think once Nathan Brown comes back, well, he's named in 18, Nathan Brown, so maybe he's fit. So that's a surprise to not see him in that 17. I'm really not sure.
We did see Madison wear the 13 in one of the trials. I think it was that Panthers trial where they put on a clinic out there at the Panthers Stadium. So, I mean, we know he's a class player. He's been in Origin squads. He's been knocking on the door of rep footy for some time. Change of role. Maybe it just reinvigorates him a little bit, because last year, even though as good as he was, maybe there was times where he kind of faded in and out of games and wasn't at his best, admittedly. So Ryan Madison, jersey 13. We'll get to our tips a little bit later. I think we spoke of a little bit of the wet there. It's going to play a real role this weekend, isn't it, Tommy? The amount of rain we've had in Sydney. Yeah,
definitely. I don't think it's meant to rain as much come the weekend, but the amount we've had, the last 2 weeks, I can't imagine these fields are going to be bone dry. I think there are going to be some wet weather games, and that'll obviously impact SuperCoach scoring a bit, but it probably evens itself out if all the teams are playing in the same conditions.
Yep. Last game of the week on Sunday night. Maybe a dry track up there in Townsville. The Cowboys up against the new look Bulldogs. For the Cowboys, their rookie 2RFs in Lukey and Nanai. Popular SuperCoach options there as well. Townsend will partner Dearden in the halves. Scott Drinkwater thereabouts, but not in the halves or in his preferred position. Otherwise, for the Bulldogs, the interesting one, I guess, from the back line that we've predicted in the preseason, Aaron Schupp misses out and Braden Burns gets a start in the centres.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Twitter was kind of in uproar, the Dogs fans this afternoon. They really wanted Aaron Schupp in. So did I. I thought he was quite good last year. I suppose Braden Burns has performed well at Souths in the past, so perhaps he's been training well with Trent Barrett there. I don't know. This game, I know it's round one and it's hard to bet anyway, but geez, how do you pick a winner here? Honestly, it's a lottery.
Toss a coin and hope. We'll get it to some odds and our best bets a little bit later on in the podcast via topsport.com.au, of course. But I guess for the Dogs as well, Kyle Flanagan, jersey 24. I guess his career is really going south at a fair rate of knots. In their back row, rather. Hetherington moves to an edge and Pangai Jr. there. Josh Jackson locking the scrum. So Jacko through the middle, he's a good option, I feel, for SuperCoach, because he's going to play big minutes. He gets through his work. We're going to be talking about Josh Jackson in a couple of weeks when he's pumped out a couple of scores of 65, 70 plus.
Yeah, it's funny. He's probably just escaped my radar, but you're right. Like, looking at his numbers from the last few years, he does a great job, and revitalised this year maybe with new players in the team. He could go well. Just quickly on the Cowboys as well, Lukey and Nanai, both really unheralded players, both starting in that in the second row slot. I guess they're both ones to watch going forward. Could have big careers ahead of them. Yeah,
they do fall into that category of that explosive, that dynamic try-scoring back rower. They can bust a tackle, they can break a line. Jason Tamalolo, jersey 13, Ruben Cotter in 14, so that answers that question. Will Tamalolo move to prop? No, he won't. I guess for anyone who owns Reece Robson, particularly around draft, because I don't think we'd be playing with him in Classic, Jake Granville. He's not been named anywhere near, well, rather, jersey 18, but right down the bottom of the reserves list. Do you breathe a sigh of relief if you're owning Robbo? I know personally I do, because that's the question around how does Gilbert, Cotter and Granville and obviously Robson fit into this rotation. They can all play that similar sort of role through the middle.
Yeah, I think definitely happy that Granville is in there if you own Robson, because Granville was direct replacement for Robson really. But yeah, Cotter could maybe come on and replace Taumalolo perhaps. Don't know too much about Tommy Gilbert, but yeah, I definitely think it's definitely a bonus not having Granville there anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously he played fullback last year. He played centre at times. He is versatile, Granville, but I think it's time for the Cowboys. Particularly, you look at their back row, they're looking towards the future. Maybe it's time that they, thank Granville for his services. Obviously very good in that premiership, but that was 7 years ago now. So that's it for the games. Stay with us. We're just going to have a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to reveal our teams. We updated them last week, and I tell you what, there's been plenty of updates since.
Having a bet on sport this week? Top this.
Whether you're into cricket and curling or golf and greyhounds, Top Sport will let you on for plenty. And with literally hundreds of markets from your own backyard to the international stage, Top Sport has you well covered. So if you want to get the top odds every time, bet with Top Sport.
Top that. Download the app today. Top Sport. Feel the excitement.
Don't let the game play you. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly.
Welcome back. SuperCoach365 podcast, proudly brought to you again in season 2022 by topsport.com.au. Let's dive into this, Tommy. This is our teams and really our first team review of the season. I know we've played with it a little bit in the recent weeks, but this is it, isn't it? This is how we're hoping our team's going to line up for round one, pending some injuries or any news in the next couple of days, Wednesday, Thursday. But this is your team on screen, the Doja Cats. Talk us through it.
Yeah, well, look, we've had a few goes in the last few weeks doing our team reveals, but it really doesn't matter until today when the teams get named. So yeah, there was a few changes. I suppose I'll start from the top. I did have a massive change of heart at hooker. I was keen on Reid Marnie for weeks, but I don't know. I really want some South flavour, especially this week coming up against Brisbane. Yeah. I'm keen on Damien Cook. What are your thoughts here?
I don't hate it, and particularly we mentioned Ilias, his first game before, so maybe Cook does feel a little bit of responsibility to, I guess, help out in the attack. And This is his best chance to do it, isn't it, against the Broncos team, which I won't say it's weak, but it's definitely not as strong as it could be with his old mate Adam Reynolds not there. Elsewhere, though, you're playing with, it looks like Cody Walker in the halves and Lachlan Ilias. So speaking of that South flavour, you're really loading up.
Yeah, Cody Walker was a really late decision. It was only once Cleary was out that I thought I just wanted some star power in my team, because I don't have Turbo in my team. So I don't know, if Turbo goes big, I need someone to try and combat that score and someone that could get over 100. And Cody Walker's very capable of doing that this week and most weeks going forward, let's be honest. Without Reynolds there, he's going to become the focal point of that side.
Yep.
So I want to have Walker in my team for at least a while. I saved a little bit of money sticking with Sean Johnson at halfback. I really like the Warriors' start to the year. If you have time, go look at the first 5 games. They're good chance of being 5 from 5 if they played their best in every game, because they'll be close to favourite in all those games. So I do like Sean Johnson. And probably the only other change is in the back line. I've gone to Zach Lomax, saved a little bit of money getting rid of Cleary, so kind of put that into my back line and picked up Lomax.
Yeah, we're both big on Lomax, aren't we? For those who are listening to this on the podcast, jump over to our YouTube and you can find all this. So it'll make sense when you see Tommy's team. Tommy, for those who I guess are in the car or listening elsewhere, maybe just go through the 1 to 13 and your reserves for the weekend, if you can sort of settle on any 4 there now.
Yeah, mate. So Teddy's going to be the fullback and captain. I think home to Knights, what a great game that is. Stags, Ramey and Lomax, and Billy Smith gets a run in the backs. Cody Walker and Sean Johnson in the halves. Second rowers, Angus Crichton, Dave Fafita, and Eli Katoa. I like him starting for the Warriors. Payne Haas and a cheapie and Josh King, who, look, I could change that maybe to Ethan Bullymore. Jury's still out there. And Damien Cook is my hooker. And the 4 reserves are Kelma Tuolangi, Lachlan Ilias, Isaac Tungo, and Ryan Pappenhausen.
Yeah, so I guess the popular strategy to gun fullbacks, you haven't cheaped out in your halves. I know you've sort of got some pods there perhaps. It's funny we call Cody Walker a pod, but this time of the year, definitely he is at the price. And then you're playing the combination Johnson-Katoa down the Warriors, right? So King there, look, he plays lock this weekend. How does he fit into that team in the coming weeks? I don't know, but you mentioned there's other options there, and at the price, you've got some money in the bank there, $72,000 available. He is an easy shift, so if you do change your heart between, as we say, we record on Tuesday night, between Wednesday and kickoff Thursday, there are some options there. Otherwise, some cheapies on your bench. You have included the young Raiders, I think I called him Josh Schiller before. It's James Schiller, I think.
Poor bloke. We don't even know his name, but I think a lot of people are in the same bloke. I think it is James Schiller. Yeah. I feel like him and Schneider are both, you really should just have them both. They're bottom price and they're going to get a good run in this team, you'd think. So also Cooler will be very popular. And yeah, I'm pretty much settled now, mate. I'm very excited. Yeah,
kickoff as we record this, 48 hours just about on the dot, 7:48 p.m. Tuesday night. For me, I'll bring up mine here now. A little bit different, and you say you're very happy. I'm actually not sure that I am, to be honest. So here's my team on the screens now. Might start at the back there as well. This is going to be very popular this weekend, isn't it? James Tedesco, captain, Ryan Pappenhausen floating around with the reserve on at the fullback slot. In my centres, now I've gone a little bit different to you. I've sort of tried to stay as cheap as possible here and just get as many playing players as possible. I think the coming weeks, this could have implications. Obviously, we've seen the wet in Sydney this week. COVID's around. My thinking around this is just having the full squad and rotating these guys once they've made a bit of cash in and out and sort of targeting fixtures, not so much targeting players, if that makes sense. Speaking of targeting fixtures, how about this? The halves, Walker and Keary, both Roosters, up against the Knights. So I've just about got the Roosters spine there. Young, Ilias and Schneider on the bench as well. So playing cheaper through the halves. So I don't have the out-and-out gun like you do with Cody Walker, but I'm not too fussed at this point. You'll see there on your screen there, $145,000 in the bank. So keeping a bit of money there. Look, the way I see it is I get a free look at Keary this week. If he's no good, he looks injured, or if he doesn't look anywhere near his best, I can just swap him to Munster next week. Yes, I'm burning a trade, but I think Keary's fixture against the Knights, it's too good to give up while Munster isn't there against the Tigers. In the forward pack, the back row, I've gone big here, which sort of goes against everything I've said in the preseason about not stacking too many dollars in the pack, but given the weather around Sydney, it's hard to look past. Again, a couple of Roosters there in Crichton and Tupanua. They are try-scoring back rowers, so they'll get through their work, but they could easily cross for 4 points as well, if not even more than that. A pair of Titans as well, Fafita and Furmore. Currently got him alongside Isaac Tango and Ethan Bullimore, as I think he actually goes by, in the back row. So again, plenty of playing players there. And some versatility in coming weeks if I do need to switch one out of those CTWs out and pushing Furmore and Tungle down. The front row, Payne Haas alongside Jermaine Tanoa Brown, Young Maney. Get on Spotify and listen to Young Maney spit. He's very, very good. And on the bench, Andrew Fafita, Max King, a couple of cheap props there. And at the top of the pile, Brandon Smith and Chris Randall. Again, targeting fixtures. I really like Brandon against the Tigers this week. No Harry Grant, no Cam McInnes available for selection, so I've gone to the next best in Brandon Smith. Playing around Marnie, I think Smith against the Tigers, he can get a try, maybe two, and Randall, obviously, the cheaper pick there of the hookers. So all of that considered, I'm not entirely happy like you maybe are, Tommy, but I'm not disappointed either. I think it's just a big week for points. We'll think about trades and trade boosts later. I'm not too disappointed to have that many Roosters in the team either.
Yeah, no, if I have any criticism of my own team, it's probably I don't have enough Roosters because I really do like that fixture this week against Newcastle. And I think you've got 5. So,
yeah,
no, very exciting there. I like the fact you've got 145K in the bank because I do think that's going to come in handy. Obviously, we're going to make money on the bench, but with players like you don't have Cleary or Turbo, you probably do want a little bit of money sitting there in case you really needed to get to one of those guys in the coming weeks. My only question for you, Chris Randall as one of your playing reserves instead of maybe a Tango. Have you set it on Randall scoring this week away to the Roosters?
Again, it's sort of just I see the Roosters having a lot of the ball, and if he's playing through the middle, the Roosters keep it tight. He may have to make 45, 50 tackles. So that's the way I'm seeing it. Whereas Tango, I don't know what to expect. I haven't seen a lot of him. And it's wet. Manly, I think, as recent as this afternoon, are into new favourites in that game on the back of the Cleary news. So what that looks like out at Penrith, and Penrith's been underwater the past 3-4 days. So could be a wet track out there. And if he is to get nervous under the bright lights, then who's going to blame him for mine? So again, I may not be entirely sold, but I'm just targeting these fixtures, names that I will get into this team sooner rather than later. I've already mentioned Munster, but Cleary, and any way I can find the cap space for Turbo, maybe after round 3 or 4. That's the way I'll be playing my team to start. So, look, we'll put these on our socials as well. I guess very quickly, I don't really need to go through the 1 to 17, but there are some cheapies there on the bench, particularly around, I've said, the CDWs. I think that's where players will find their differences this year, perhaps more so than last.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think names like Schneider, Ilias, Valea helps, Schiller, probably names we didn't even expect to see today. They're going to be massively important. And I do like your squad in as much as you've got 23 out of 25 players actually starting in that NRL team this week. So you've got a nice big squad and you're pretty much ready if there is any sort of COVID outbreak or lots of injuries. So I think your team's really good in that aspect.
Handy. And of course, again, I'm not entirely sold on this, like I've said a couple of times here, but targeting the fixtures, and I think I'll continue to do that for at least this week and probably next as well. Tommy, lucky enough now to be joined by Dean Pollitt from Top Tippers. We mentioned it at the top, what a great initiative this is to join our tipping comp. We'll throw it up on our screens one more time before we bring Dean in, and here it is for you now. Top Tippers. Download the app today, absolutely free of charge to play. You can win up to $500 for first place and an NRL jersey for second place, of a jersey of your choosing. Simply head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Top Tippers, and then once you're in the app, you can search for our competition, SC365 listeners. Simple as that. Dean, believe you got you down the line now, mate. Thanks for joining us. Very exciting time of the year for you.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So it's great to be on. I'm very excited. The footy is fast approaching, isn't it? Only a couple more days to go.
It is obviously that first game, the Panthers and the Seagulls. Some big news around today about Nathan Cleary. How has that shifted the markets and particularly the game scores in the Top Tippers app? And what has that shown for the big tippers? Or I guess it's hard to say the big tippers, but some of the percentages around who's tipping what. I'm sure that's changed on the back of that news.
Yeah, look, it's definitely had an effect. Obviously, Cleary, my understanding today from catching up with the news, he's now been ruled out of the game. How it affects the top tippers' game values is it doesn't. Our game values are actually set in stone. So what you see within the application, if you place your tip on, say, the Penrith, it won't affect the game values, but it certainly has had an effect on the betting market. And a popular tactic within the top tippers application is people paying attention to what's actually happening on the betting market. If something shortens or if there's a discrepancy between my values and what the betting market is saying, you can find yourself a little edge there. But I've certainly changed my tip today. I definitely had the Panthers, but now I'm starting to think maybe Manly could be pretty good value.
Sure, a lot of others will here. I've just put up our tips. So Tommy and I is on your screen now, and that is the only game that we differ on the weekend. In fact, so I'm sticking with Penrith at this point. I think the home ground advantage, they'll be too good, but Tommy, you think the other way?
Yeah, well, I just think, as Dean said there, with the points, you can get a little bit of value compared to the betting, and 2.5 points for Manly. I couldn't say no to that. Just quickly, Dean, great to have you on. Great to have you involved this year with our podcast. Talking about the bonuses on Top Tippers, I've read a lot about them. The Smug Tip, there's another one out there. Could you maybe talk the viewers through those bonuses for us?
Yeah, so our bonuses are unique. To give you a bit of I suppose to go into depth of what they are, a lot of research was done into this application. We did over a decade of data analysis, and we formulated different sort of tipping styles. Players who would be more inclined to tip the favourites versus players that would be more inclined to tip the roughies. So we kind of developed the two unique bonuses, the heater bonus and the smug tip, which you've sort of just touched on. The heater bonus is favours the person that does tip the favourite, typically. The way that works is if you get 4 games right in a row, from then on, your points double automatically. So it's really good to get that sequence going and to pick winners. And obviously the teams more favoured to win are more likely, but you score less points. Whereas the smug tip, which is sort of a homage to my schoolmates, because this is something we did in our old tipping comps and whatnot. If you pick the team that no one else picks, which is typically speaking a massive roughie, it's instant double points. But through that decade of data analysis that we did in sort of structuring the bonuses and why it's 4 games versus the smug tip, which is the roughies, we realized that the typical size tipping comp is about 6 players, and they perfectly balance out in a comp like that. So if a comp has 6 players, going into the betting market and why that's such a great indicator and for the probability of the actual results, they really counteract each other really well. So for all those people who are, signing up to Top Tippers at the moment, it's great to we've had such a massive influx, and thank you guys for getting behind it. We've certainly seen your tipping comp really start to get some numbers, which is good. They really complement each other quite well. We also have the stock standard bonuses. A lot of people who are familiar with tipping comps have like the joker rounds or the double rounds, but we've thrown in a triple round as well as the final frenzy as well. That also doubles all the points during the final series as well. So they're sort of our bonuses. They basically will produce big swings. And if you find yourself in last place, but you have a good week or two, you can really catapult yourself up to the top of the ladder, which makes it quite an exciting and engaging platform.
Yep, and obviously you mentioned there the average number of 6. I think we've got 46 as we went to air tonight, and you
guys are doing particularly well, yeah.
As many as possible to jump behind us and get involved in the competition. You'll see the branding up on your screens now, or if you can't and you're listening to us, there it is, Top Tippers. That's what's to look out for in your app stores or right across wherever you get yours. Dean, before we let you go, mate, because I know you've probably got to get back to your dinner time as we record this, tell us, mate, your best tip of the weekend, and I guess maybe where do you like a bit of value as well?
The big news is the Raiders, I think. They lost Fogarty, which is going to be a big loss. They've got 2 debutantes coming. They're the halfback, which I can't pronounce his name. And then they've got Brett Mullins.
Like Rob Schneider.
Nephew. Yeah, that's it. Brad Schneider, that's the one. They've also got Brett Mullins' nephew debuting, but I think Fogarty's going to be a big loss, and they're both $1.90. Plus, Nico Hines he's a great player. It'd be interesting to see how he goes for the Sharks. So my tip for the week is the Sharkies, but it's a bit of a crapshoot this week. The first couple of rounds, everyone's still trying to find their feet, and I looked at the field this week and I sort of scratching my head and I made the game.
Might be a good week to go the outsiders on the Top Tippers app if we're not sure, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So, but guys, thank you very much for having me. It's I'm looking forward to the year. It's gonna be good.
No worries. We might catch up with you, if not next week, in the next couple of weeks as well. We can sort of keep pushing this. Tell us, before we do let you go, though, people can continue to sign up throughout the season, of course, and then given those bonuses, you're never really out of the game. So good chance if you miss it for this week, you can still jump in and be a real shot at that 500.
Yeah, exactly. And if you find yourself even at the halfway point of the season having a lot of fun and going, geez, why didn't I get so-and-so on board when it first started?
Yep.
You can run multiple competitions through your account. And if you start a new competition halfway through the year, everyone actually starts at zero. And the reason we've designed it that way is to get people to come on board where it's an even, clean slate.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse when you join halfway through the year and the person leading is in like an unreachable total, and you're kind of just wasting your time. But if everyone started at an even playing field, it doesn't affect any of their other competitions. You can pick it up whenever. And look, guys, we just hope people sign up and play. A lot of work's been put into this. We're really excited, and let's get the footy underway, hey?
Absolutely. The countdown's on. Big thanks to you, Dean. As I said, we'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks, or maybe at the midway point of the season, and we'll talk the way that things are panning out, and we might even be able to get a little bit more insight as to who the big players are tipping in the coming weeks.
I look forward to it. All right. Thank you, Ryan.
One more reminder, there it is. Download the app as you see it there. Top Tippers, free to play. We can't stress it enough. Get involved. Take on Tommy and I and your fellow listeners of the SuperCoach365 podcast. And of course, we'll plug this one more time. Never too late to get involved with our overall group. Thanks to Top Tippers, Dean and the crew doing an amazing job. They've put up $500 and an NRL jersey as well for our overall group. Proudly brought to you in 2022 by Top Tippers. Tommy, that's just about us for tonight. A big show, a massive show even. TeamListTuesday, there was plenty to get through. I think we got through it.
Absolutely, mate. Very exciting time of the year and a big show to boot. 2 days away, as we say, from the start of the season. Looking forward to it.
Time for the talk to stop, though, isn't it? Because teams are in, our teams are in as well. Big thanks to everyone who's tuned in tonight or in the lead up to Thursday night, across the weekend as well. This is the SuperCoach365 podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SuperCoach365, Instagram, Facebook as well. Subscribe, turn your bell on, all of that. Leave a couple of comments on YouTube for us as well. This is Ryan and Tommy, SuperCoach365. Enjoy your footy this weekend. We'll chat to you soon.